Welcome back to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I am Doug Kemp.
On this week's show, we begin preparations for the 2014-15 season with our team-by-team preview of the Central Division.
And not only will we preview the Central Division, we will break it down to its bare bones and expose every detail of each team's being before predicting the final standings of the Central Division for the 2014-15 season.
Sign on to that. All that, and why Torey Krug is better than Marc-Andre Bergeron. Let's drop the puck on episode 47. We are here, episode 47.
Wow,
Doug
47.
Cannon, how you doing?
Hey, you look different.
I am
I
different.
haven't seen you in a while.
I'm a stand-in for Luke because Luke got lost on the way over because we haven't done the show in about a month.
You didn't Google it?
No, I don't believe in Google. So,
Studio 5822.
is that the studio?
I don't know. I just made it
I
up.
was going to say, just give out your
It's my address.
to all the Hockey Podcast listeners. Well, here we are. Like I said, it's been about a month, but the flip side to that is that we are here to start the 2014-15 NHL season. Doug,
It's already started for me, buddy.
It never really ended for you.
It did. I had a little bit during the summer where there was no going to the rink.
Like 4 hours off one night.
Now it's 7 days a week.
Well, we're within striking distance.
You can hear it.
Oh, yeah,
It's from 4 games this weekend, yelling from the bench.
in an ice-cold rink and then
Yes.
stepping outside into 125-degree weather.
Yeah, nobody else can do that, though.
No, you're like some sort of superhero.
I had the doors open on the vehicle, air conditioned, full blast when I left the rink this afternoon. And I was like,
Yeah, I'm sure you won't be sick by episode 48.
there we go.
So, hockey season, the NHL season.
The NHL season. There we go.
Yeah, just a quick timeline here.
Rookies are what, around the 9-12 dateline?
Not even a week away from when we're recording this. As we're recording today, this is going to be a Central Division preview. If you listened last year, you're awesome. We did these last year. They were award-winning.
Always award-winning. The show is award-winning. We just don't know what awards we're winning.
That is a very inspiring moment right there from Doug Cannon. So we're going to do that, and because we're doing division previews, you can tell we're basically 4 weeks away from the start of the NHL season. That's the whole point I'm trying to get at.
Wait a minute. There's 4 divisions.
Yes.
Wow.
4 weeks.
See how that works
Look at
out?
that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But if we were just randomly doing divisions 8 weeks before the season started, that wouldn't make any sense.
We're so smart.
We are quite genius. Because it is episode 47, Doug, before we get into the 7 teams that make up the Central Division,
Oh, here it comes.
who's your number 47? Do you even remember how to play this game?
I know how to play this game. I know how to win this game.
So far, you're 0-46. Go ahead.
Marc-Andre Bergeron.
I didn't like where you were going with that Marc-Andre. There's not a lot of 47s, are there?
No, but there is Marc-Andre Bergeron.
That's good. I'm going to go.
And no technical semantics. He wore 47 from day one
I'm sure he did.
to the end.
I'm going to go with co-winners for number 47. 2 young players in the league right now. Torey Krug, Hampus Lindholm.
What about Mr. Flitch?
No.
Oh, okay.
Torey Krug, Hampus Lindholm.
No, Marc-Andre.
All right.
13 years, man.
That's a very compelling argument.
Seven different teams. It's a long career in the
If he was
NHL.
committed, he would have gone to 47 different teams.
And he was a defenseman.
Well, so was Torey Krug. I think you'd be able to get behind Torey.
He's got a long way to go yet.
He's American.
He's got a long way to go.
All right. Let's get
I
into
am a
this.
very strong USA hockey supporter.
You support 2 things.
Because guess whose season just got underway?
Tell me.
The National Development Program.
There you go.
There you go.
Is that why I just
USA
had to pay
Hockey.
my USA Hockey fees again?
Did you pay him?
I feel like I'm paying him every month now.
No, it's every year.
Feels like every month.
It's only like $40.
Yeah, it's a little more. That price is going up.
Man, they got your health covered if you get hurt.
Well, we'll see.
And it works.
We're going into the Central Division here. We'll do predictions at the end.
Okay.
Predictions that Doug claims he wrote down with his eyes closed.
And I did.
Because that's...
Look how crooked it is.
Yeah, well, that's true. There's no way anybody with their eyes open would have written like that. I think this division might be the hardest one to predict, to be honest.
I disagree. It's a strong division,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's the hardest.
I remember last year sitting in this
I think the
very
Pacific
chair.
is the hardest.
Pacific's not going to be easy either. But this one, I remember sitting in this chair a year ago saying the Central Division might actually be the easiest division. Remember, we were thinking like not that the division would be easy, but that Chicago would have the easiest path to winning the division. And as it turns out, they didn't win the division. They didn't even get second place in the division.
That's right.
And it's not like they dropped off. So
they finished third.
They did, and yet almost went to the Stanley Cup again. So I say we begin with Dallas.
Okay. And where do you want to begin with Dallas?
Well, can I throw out the Stanley Cup odds? I think this is a good place to start.
Okay, let's start there.
And I'm not.
And what are the odds for Dallas to win the Stanley Cup?
I'm not advocating you go put money on any hockey team. That's not the point here. I just want to get a feel for what the general public believes these teams' chances are of winning the Stanley Cup. Dallas is 28-1.
Wow.
So Stars made some improvements in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Added Jason Spezza, Ales Hemsky, Anders Lindbach.
Very good pickups, by the way.
I think so.
I don't think it'll help them.
Really?
I think that the division is strong enough that even though those are great pickups, and if I'm a Dallas fan, I'm excited, but I don't think it's strong enough for what this division brings.
That might be true. Jim Nill has been there for, this will be his second season, correct? Came over from Detroit, and he hasn't wasted any time. They added Tyler Seguin last year in that trade with Boston. He had 93 points. Mike Modano came out earlier this week and said he thinks Seguin will eventually be a 100-point producer, maybe as soon as this year. That's very possible. So they've got offense.
They got offense, but you need somebody to stop the puck.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Doug, because that takes us to the key stat of the team.
Okay, give me the key stat.
The Dallas Stars were 7-10-1 last year in games where Kari Lehtinen did not start. Now that I look at it, that's not really that impressive.
It's not that impressive.
No. But these stats build, don't you worry.
Well, here's a stat for you.
Okay.
235 goals for, 228 goals against. That's a very slim margin.
Yeah, if you look at the Western Conference last year, Dallas made the playoffs. They basically squeaked in the last couple days. They got in over Phoenix by 2 points, and the Coyotes had quite a few injuries down the stretch. So Dallas gets in with 91 points. They make a little noise in the first round, but they go out. I do think they're improved, but you don't think they're a playoff team?
I think they're going to be where they were last season.
Okay.
They're going to be sniffing it, but I don't know if they're strong enough. Yes, we added a couple of offensive players during the offseason. Jason Spezza, the biggest. But I don't think it's enough offensive power to take 235 goals for, 228 goals against. The 228 is what bothers me when I look at Dallas because the margin for for and against is very slim. So let's take a look at the defense. What do we got? We got Ben and Gonchar.
Yeah, well, you just hit on my question for this team. I mean, the way we did it last year, we each threw out a question in the discussion. And my question, and maybe it's the same for you, my question isn't so much about goaltending. I don't mind Kari Lehtinen when he's in there, but the defense. You're talking about a team that has big expectations now, and their top defensive pairing is essentially Alex Goligoski, Trevor Daley. Not bad until we get to the other teams in this division.
Correct. And I think that, to me, is that question mark. Did Dallas do enough to fix that problem? I think they do have decent goaltending, but I don't know if their blue line is going to be strong enough, and I don't know if they added enough offense to compensate the weakness on the defense.
And that's really the key for teams in this division and really in the Western Conference in general. I mean, it's not like Dallas's defense is that bad, but any weakness will get exposed.
Especially in the Western Conference. And I know we're talking about the Central Division, but the conference as a whole is so strong, and as we saw in the offseason, a lot of teams made a lot of moves. So I don't know if it's enough.
Well, the key really with a lot of these teams we're going to talk about is you just kind of hit on it. The Stars went out, they added Jason Spezza. That could potentially be a huge addition.
Yes.
But all the teams around them made moves too. And so when that happens, their margin for error for getting in last season wasn't just a +7 goal differential. They made it in by essentially one game.
Right.
And a game and a half over Nashville. So there were two teams in the Coyotes and Predators right behind them that dealt with pretty sizable injuries. Again, every NHL team faces injuries, but Dallas didn't really have to endure anything to the extent the way the Coyotes and Predators did. So you have to figure that margin for error is even slimmer this year.
Yeah. And, and one guy we overlooked, I don't know if is Goligoski.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, they do have him back there.
But he's basically their top option.
Right. And, I mean, that's only 3. If you roll 4 or if you roll 3 pair, the 50%, the other 50% of your D is questionable.
It's shaky back there. Jamie Benn, 79 points last season. He seems to get better every year. I mean, it is a good team. I don't want to downplay him. We'll get to predictions later.
Well, not only are they a good team, they have a good coaching staff. They have a great head coach.
That's why this division's so hard to pick. I mean, the range for Dallas, realistically, in this division, they could finish as low as 6th. They could easily finish 2nd. I don't think they will, but they could. Would it shock you?
There's no way they're finishing 2nd.
Okay, apparently it would shock you. Where do you want to go next year?
Okay.
Let's
go from the middle of the pack
to
the bottom of the pack and talk about Winnipeg.
I let you pick, and you think
Winnipeg
it's the
fans, he told me to say that. I'm sorry.
That's a lie. That's absolutely false. Winnipeg Jets odds for the Stanley Cup are 65-1. Well, they're not winning the Stanley Cup this year.
I don't even think they're making the playoffs this year.
There's not a lot of sure things in hockey right now.
The only sure thing in Winnipeg is they have a team and they're playing this year.
And it's going to be cold. I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's going to be cold. Certain. It'll be cold this winter.
They're not making the playoffs in this division. I feel pretty confident saying that. They've been outscored as a team for 3 straight seasons. So your little plus minus you just threw out there for Dallas. Winnipeg's done it 3 straight years. They've missed the playoffs 7 straight seasons.
Yeah, their goals for was 227, goals against 237.
So that leads into my question. I don't even know if we got to your question with the last team, did we?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, that's fine. That's all about me at this point. How many times can the Jets miss the playoffs before the sort of goodwill of, hey, you're the new team in town, before that starts to wear off? I feel like it already is starting to wear off.
It has to wear off. I mean, look at the battle in the offseason with Evander Kane.
Well, that's just an annual thing now, it feels like.
But it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be. He's probably their best, at least their most talented player.
Like, I mean, if you don't sign Evander Kane, there isn't a team in the league that doesn't want that kid.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there isn't a team anywhere that doesn't want him on their roster. So, if I'm a Jets fan, the honeymoon is about to expire.
Well, this is their 4th season in Winnipeg. Like I said, they've missed the playoffs all 3.
But if you're a solid hockey fan and you're a solid sports fan, you're going to give any new franchise at least 5 to maybe 7 years before you go, what the heck? What are you guys doing?
Well,
yes?
Yeah, but I'll take that one step further. In this division, I don't I'm not really in the business of making predictions 2 years down the line, but I don't see them making the playoffs in 2015-16 either. Not the way they're currently constructed. Something's going to have to change.
I haven't looked at their cap situation, but they're going to have to spend some money. They're going to have to get some players.
Well, Winnipeg, I'm not trying to pick on the city of Winnipeg, but if you're trying to sign free agents, I do think that your talent pool of players that are willing to play in Winnipeg when they're out there signing and choosing where they're going to play is a little more limited than, say, Los Angeles.
Okay. 227 for, 237 against. Let's start between the pipes. What do you got?
That's the problem.
What do you got? You got Al Montoya?
You don't even have Al Montoya anymore.
No, he moved.
You have Andre Pavlich, and that's really about it right now.
And maybe Hutchinson?
Okay, are you going to win games with that?
No.
I mean, you're not. You're facing Chicago and Colorado and St. Louis and Minnesota consistently. You can't be weak in goal, and that's where it starts with Winnipeg. I mean, you always talk about how you have to build your team from the goal, up the middle, out.
Right.
And Winnipeg seems to almost be doing it the exact opposite.
Yeah, what's your biggest defenseman? Dustin, why does his name always hurt me?
Well, they've got some talent. I mean, Jacob Trouba is solid. Zach Bogosian showed some improvement. Tobias Enstrom. But these are guys there's not a clear-cut number one. Again, we almost did these in the wrong order. It's going to sound like we're ripping on Winnipeg until we get to Minnesota and they have Ryan Suter, or Chicago and they have Duncan Keith.
Well, or Nashville with Jones and Weber.
Yeah.
But I think it starts with goaltending. They don't have any goaltending.
They're going to have to do something about that. You look at some of the players that were available this offseason, and the fact that they didn't go after any of them is kind of curious. I mean, look, I understand that Pavlich is signed for 3 more years at $3.9 million a season, so you've made a financial commitment to him. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable, even if you think Pavlich can be a contributor, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if he was in a timeshare, or at least being pushed. He's not really being pushed.
Right.
What's his obviously his motivation is he wants to win hockey games, otherwise he wouldn't be a hockey player, but he doesn't have that extra push coming from lower on the depth chart. And he doesn't have a whole lot of help in front of him right now.
What did
either.
Blake Wheeler do for the Jets last year?
Blake Wheeler had a pretty good year.
He did have a good year, and he re-signed.
69 points, played all 82 games. Brian Little, very quietly, 64 points. Dustin Byfuglien had 56 points.
But there was 180 points you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And it still didn't help him.
No, and again, a lot of that's just the division they're in. You look at the offseason moves for them. They lose Olli Jokinen and Al Montoya, we touched on. They add Matthew Perreault. Nothing really big one way or the other with the Jets. They're just kind of – I feel like the Jets are kind of treading water.
You know, the funny thing about Olli Jokinen is why wouldn't you keep him?
I think it depends what direction you're going. If you're trying to have a youth movement, I'm fine with you letting him go. But again, I don't know that they have a very clear-cut plan. And that's what would worry me.
But an inexpensive veteran that brings 43 points to the table.
Yeah.
The experience alone
it would be worth something.
I would think.
He just got more money to go elsewhere. I think that's what the difference was. So and he ends up in Nashville.
But my whole point is that Winnipeg is going to have to, because you brought it up, has to develop some kind of identity for the fans to latch onto. Because we know how rabid the Canadian fans can be when it comes to the sport of hockey.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care if you're in Toronto or Montreal, they like to pound their chest. But Winnipeg, Vancouver,
Moose Jaw,
St. John's, they're just as passionate about their hockey as the big cities are. And if Winnipeg doesn't start winning and start doing something, yeah, you'll have hockey fans because it's Winnipeg. They got the Blue Bombers, but they don't have much else other than cold weather. They're going to have something to root for.
I think, and I'd be interested to see if you agree with me on this. I think the two keys for Winnipeg, other than goaltending, the two steps they have to take. One, they have to improve the power play. They were 30th 2 years ago. They were 25th last season. But I think the biggest thing for them really is to figure out what they're doing with Evander Kane. Is he? I mean, even this week we see the story of Evander Kane saying, "Oh, I'm happy to be in Winnipeg." But he has to say that every other month. So either figure out this is our guy. You've got him signed for 4 more years at $5.25 million a year, and then you got to kill all the negative press
surrounding him.
And maybe it's not even his fault or the team's fault, but just the speculation that's just constantly there of does he fit in here?
You know what it reminds me of?
No.
It reminds me of the Subban situation in Montreal. I don't care how much money and how long the term of that was that PK got. There's always that, "Oh, I'm happy to be here."
Yeah.
Evander's doing the same thing. "Oh, I'm happy to be here."
I just feel like Kane's whole time since they moved to Winnipeg has been contentious one way or the other. And last year he had 41 points in 63 games. My thought is, A, it's better for the team and the fans and everybody and Evander Kane if we know he's here or if you're going to trade him and get something for him. But then B, I just think he would put up more than 41 points.
I'll give you another example. Robert Luongo in Vancouver.
Yeah, that might be a little closer.
Right?
Yeah. I'd go with that. Well, let's follow Olli Jokinen from Winnipeg to Nashville.
Oh, that's a very clever segue. Very good.
Not even a segue. I just like to follow Olli Jokinen and let him lead our show.
Do you have his bobblehead?
No. Actually, I do.
Yes, you do.
I do have an Olli Jokinen
I know you do.
bobblehead.
That's why I said it.
Care to guess on Nashville's odds to win the Stanley Cup? I will tell you this, Doug, before you guess. The only reason I'm even giving the odds for all these teams are because of Nashville's odds.
Nashville's odds are 50-1.
100-1.
Why is it so bad?
Nashville, in the eyes of Vegas or whoever puts these odds out, has the least chance of all the teams in the NHL. There's like 4 teams tied with them of winning the Stanley Cup. Now, I don't think Nashville's going to win the Stanley Cup, but this is a good team.
It's a very good team. They picked up one of your boys.
Yeah, Pittsburgh was kind enough to give them James Neal for free, and that really kind of kick-started their offseason.
It really did.
Yes, it really, really did. That's not a joke.
Because then they signed.
They signed.
Well, first of all, hold that thought.
I don't even know what it was yet.
I think it was mid-July, Mike Fisher went down
Yeah,
with an injury.
Achilles.
So he's out 4 to 6 months. So then we started seeing the signings.
So Nashville, this is their offseason. They lose Fisher to the injury. They trade Patrick Hornquist, Nick Spaulding for James Neal. I don't care how you want to cut that. That is a huge win for
It's a
Nashville.
big win. It's a very big win.
Don't know what Pittsburgh was doing, but I think Nashville snuck in and saw a Penguins team that wanted to just make changes for the sake of making changes.
And they cashed in.
And they did cash in. But they didn't just add him. They had Olli Jokinen, as we're talking about. They also had Derek Roy, Mike Ribeiro, two guys that might not do anything, but they also cost nothing.
They cost nothing, but guys like Mike Ribeiro have huge upside. Huge upside. So if he goes in with a purpose, you're looking at 40 points easy, 45 points out of him.
Especially if he plays with James Neal.
And he's a special teams guy, too. So you put Mike Ribeiro on their power play. Now their power play just got better.
Yeah. And I think the key when you're looking at the Nashville Predators, again, they missed the playoffs by 3 points last season. They didn't have a goal scorer like James Neal. They didn't have potential playmakers like Mike Ribeiro and even Derek Roy. And look, again, those two could both just be terrible. They might just be done. But if
for the price they got, the upside's bigger.
There's no risk. There really is no risk. And there's potential reward, but especially when you pair them with a guy like James Neal. But we're tiptoeing around the biggest thing here. They finished 3 points out of the playoffs last year, and Pekka Rinne played 24 games.
That is a very, very, very valid point because they're going to start the season with Rinne.
So how many points in the standings is having Pekka Rinne worth? I mean, I would say at least 7 or 8.
That low?
Well, because it's tough. I mean, you have to account for the fact they are in the Western Conference. So he may make a loss to Chicago 2-1 instead of 4-1. But even if it's 7 or 8, that puts you in the top 8.
What was his percentage?
What was
before he went down?
Well, he just didn't get to play a whole lot last year in general. I mean, he's always good.
In the 24 games he played, he was a .902 and a 2.77.
And by his standards, that's not good. It's not bad.
But it's only the first 24 games of the season.
Yeah, he came back for a little bit at the end and did help. I mean, they made a nice push there at the end, and they do end up going separate ways from Barry Trotz.
But here's the interesting stat. Out of those 24 games that you mentioned,
okay,
he had 10 wins.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's consistent Vezina finalist.
So at 82 games, let's say he played full 82 games. How many games does he win?
Like 38.
38-ish, right?
Somewhere in there.
So now you're looking at 70-some-odd points.
Well, look at the couple years before that. Lockout shortened season, he plays 43 games, goes 15-16, a 2.43 goals against. Year before, 43 wins, a 2.39 goals against. Year before that, 33 wins, a 2.12 goals against. He's big. He's consistent. He's the sort of goalie that can win you games. I'm interested to see this year how different things are going to be in Nashville because it's not Barry Trotz in that defensive scheme.
That's the interesting X factor right there is it's not Trotz anymore.
So if they can transition quickly and they are a team that scores goals and Rinne is still Rinne, that's a playoff team. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, if some of that excellent defense and those good numbers from Rinne were because the whole team was geared to playing specifically defense in front of him and focused on that, then we might see a little bit of a drop-off in his numbers.
It depends on the offensive scheme that they adopt.
And how quickly they can do it.
Because they do have a good defensive core.
Oh, well, yeah, it helps to have Shea Weber.
So, and a young kid and a sophomore, as long as he has a strong sophomore season in Seth Jones. So, if their defense can hold up throughout the season and go to the offensive scheme, the forwards are going to have to buy into the whole helping out the defense.
Nashville's always been a team that I think flies under the radar nationally because people, A, I mean, that's not one of the top teams you just think of when you think of the NHL, but B, I think your typical fan in New York or wherever isn't watching Nashville and watching that slowed down defensive style play of hockey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, now they're going to change it. I mean, they have a coach that's very familiar to everybody, and they're going to see if they can be a team that scores goals to win games.
And I'm looking at my picks. I'm going, uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, you know how you're looking at them? With your eyes open.
I'm looking at them. That's right, with my eyes open.
You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Hockey Podcast for even more hockey news.
#do it.
Segment 2. Kind of feels like
that comes after 1.
Hour 2, Doug. That first segment was lengthy.
That was very lengthy.
You know what? I don't care. It's a season preview. We're going to talk for as long as we want to. It's a free-form conversation.
Yes, it is.
It's a podcast. On now to the Colorado Avalanche. The team I know you like.
I love this team. Yes, I do.
So I'll let you begin.
And I'll start with the coach. I think the success of this team is the coach. He's still in his honeymoon period. He has unlimited young talent, solid goaltending, and he picked up a guy by the name of, what the heck was his name? Ginla.
Yeah, it's a nice little addition.
Just
to
nice little
team.
addition, just that savvy vet to a very talented young team. I think Ginla is going to bring just such a X factor to the locker room that nobody else can bring.
Would you say Colorado was the story of the NHL last year?
Yeah, and I think they're going to be the story of the NHL next year too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really do.
Because 2 years ago, lockout shortened season, 48 games, they finished 29th in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
They win the lottery, they get the first pick, they take Nathan McKinnon.
He was a superstar.
Runs away with Rookie of the Year honors. You mentioned Patrick Waugh, he wins the Jack Adams. Ryan O'Reilly wins the Lady Byng with 2 penalty minutes.
That was awesome.
So they were kind of the stories of the awards show, but I really think they were the stories of the NHL last year because you go from 29th to 112 points. They won this division last year.
Yep.
If you go back to last year's show, and I don't know why you would because it's a year old now, but you and I both talked about how Colorado was going to be a team. I think specifically the way I said it was when I'm watching the hockey package on TV, if my team isn't playing, I'm watching Colorado because I think they're going to be fun to watch. Not only were they fun to watch, they won a ton of games. Can they keep that up this season?
I think the answer to that is a simple yes.
Even in this division?
Even in this division. They won 52 games last year.
Yeah. It's everything went right for them.
As did St. Louis, but that's for another segment. But yes, they won 52 games. Will they win 52 games this year?
No.
I don't think so.
And look, they almost made it out of the first round. A hard-fought 7-game entertaining series with Minnesota that went to overtime in Game 7, which is always great. The stat I'll throw at you for Colorado, and I don't know if this should concern Avalanche fans or encourage them, but they were 20-4-8 in one-goal games, 24-18 in all the other games. So they were getting it done in those one-goal games when it matters most. Other than that, they were just a little bit over 500. But is that an indicator that this team knows how to win close games, or was there maybe some luck involved there?
I don't like to use the word luck because I think this team played extremely well. I think there's luck in every game.
All right.
Bounce of the puck, whatever. Stupid refs. But there's always some form of luck.
Always stupid refs, right? Never intelligent refs.
But they had 254 and 220 against. That's a pretty good margin.
That's a pretty big difference.
That's a pretty good. And they do still have that firepower going into this season. I think they won't win 52 games because I think Dallas is better. I think Nashville is better. I think those two teams will take a few of those wins away from them, as they will other teams. I don't think you're going to see two teams with 50-plus wins in this division.
Semyon Varlamov was key last year, Vezina finalist. Can he be that good?
Well, I think he can be that good. I mean, we talked about it last year. His head coach is a goalie.
We talked about it before last year.
Right.
And actually, you're the one that made the point. We both talked about how Patrick was the coach. You brought up the fact that they had Jean-Sebastien Giguère behind him, which is like having a second goalie coach, and they had Francois Allaire. So he had basically 3 goalie coaches last year.
Right.
And I believe our exact quote was, if he's ever going to have a breakout year, this is the year, and sure enough, he did.
So now we have to question
everything.
Will his hubris get the better of him going into this season?
Well, Giguère's gone.
Yes, he retired.
You look at the roster moves. There's some significant ones here for Colorado. They lose Giguère, they lose P.A. Parento, they lose Paul Stastny, which is big.
That's a big one.
But they do add, as you said, Jerome Iginla. They also add Danny Briere, who I don't think will provide as much on the ice as Iginla, but that's 2 vets being brought into a very young team.
But what Danny Briere will bring in is that he'll more than likely end up on the third or the fourth line, and he will produce points for those lines that those lines normally don't produce. So when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, Colorado's going to have a fourth line with somebody on it that can produce points.
And not only that,
because the third line probably is going to have number 12.
Yeah. I mean, it's talent-wise, they're loaded. We're not even talking about the main guys. We're not talking about Gabriel Landeskog or Matt Duchene.
Right.
Nathan MacKinnon is probably my question for this team.
Sophomore slump?
Yeah. I think he's immune to it.
I think he will not fall into the same trap that Duchene fell in.
Okay.
I really don't. I think he's not that type. I think he's mentally strong. I listened to interviews with him, and he's articulate. He seems focused. I don't see him having the same kind of sophomore slump that Duchene did.
Do you think it helps that he's teammates with Duchene and Matt Duchene can say, hey, look, I had a great rookie year, and then sophomore year, not that he took it for granted, but he didn't push hard in the offseason to take the next step. He sits 10 feet away from him in the locker room.
Right.
He can talk to him and be like, what'd you do?
True.
It can't hurt.
No, it can't hurt at all.
Colorado hasn't won a playoff series since 2007, 2008. Can you believe that?
That's hard to think of.
So I'll tie it in this way.
Because I had picked them to go deep last year.
I think a lot of people did once we got to the playoffs. You add again Ginla and Briere, not only are you getting vets, you're getting vets that have never won the Stanley Cup. So they have that extra little
hunger.
Yeah. And it almost last year a lot of it played out kind of like a movie for Colorado with how well things went, and now it's like the sequel to the movie. You're bringing in a couple vets that have never won. They want it that much more, and this is maybe their last chance.
My only question, I still stand by. I think Colorado's going to be strong because Patrick Waugh won't let it be any other way. He's that individual. And even if Varlamov tends to slump a little bit, Waugh will make any kind of change he needs to make for his team to win because he's that type of guy that won't tolerate it. He's a winner. He's always been a winner. Wherever he's been, whether he's a player or a coach at the junior level, now at the NHL level, he knows how to win and wants to win. That's the difference.
And he's the rare Hall of Fame player that was willing to go through the junior ranks as a coach to get to this point. So he didn't do this to be a good coach for 1 year.
Right. He did it with hunger for the game and hunger of doing it right and hunger of saying, look, I'm doing it the right way. Nobody can come back on me and say, I used my Stanley Cup rings to get me a coaching position. I did it the right way.
He'll just say he can't hear you because he has his Stanley Cup rings jammed into his ears.
Greatest quote ever.
It's right up there. Chicago, they don't win the Stanley Cup last year, which for them is a huge disappointment. I'll just come right out with my question for the Blackhawks, and maybe this will trigger the conversation here. I watched that 7-game series between the Blackhawks and the Kings last year in the Western Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. And, of course, those two met the year before in the Western Conference Finals. Is there anybody else in the Western Conference right now you could see taking Chicago out in a 7-game series other than LA? I mean, this team is primed to go right back.
Very good question. It's a very good question.
I thought it was pretty special.
Yeah, Anaheim.
I knew that was going to be your answer because that was your answer to everything last year, Anaheim.
I still believe it.
Now, you might
Anaheim really disappointed me last year.
Yeah.
Because they had all the key components. And then here comes the LA Kings from behind a door, and like, where did they just come from? And Anaheim, I still haven't been able to figure out why what happened. It goes back to goaltending.
And not like their goaltending was terrible, but it wasn't perfect, which it has to be.
Wasn't perfect, and we said pretty much the same thing about the Ducks as we did the Sharks, and we'll touch on that in another show. But I think if anybody's going to give the Blackhawks a run, my opinion only, not the views of the show, not the views of Luke Lipinski.
The views of half the show, though.
But my view is that I think Anaheim can give Chicago a run. And
certainly LA, right? You're not ruling LA out. You're just saying in addition to the Kings.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, I'm going to throw out that H word, hubris. I'm wondering if LA is a little full of themselves.
I feel like you learned a new word in the last month since
season
1 of the Hockey Podcast.
I've used that word quite a bit. And I could say ego. I could say swag. I could say arrogance.
Ooh, you just said it.
Oh, I just said.
I just heard
But anyways,
Wait, if this is like season 2 of this show, shouldn't we have like random like cameos from outdated guests?
yeah.
Shouldn't like Luke Perry be
Where's
on the
my
show?
dog?
That's a whole
The
different
lizards
show.
are gone.
Yeah, I missed the lizards. They were real key contributors to last season. Episodes like 38 through 44. Additions: Brad Richards for free, basically. I mean, they really didn't have to pay. Very
Unbelievable.
much. And they
Unbelievable.
essentially lost nobody. There's still talk. I mean, they're still over the cap as we record this, so they're going to have to do something. But I don't think it's going to be anybody.
What do they have to
of
do, Luke?
consequence.
Because they're over the cap. What do they have to do?
They have to get rid of a player. So
Why
they're
do they
back
have
under
to
the
get a
cap.
retire?
Because
It's called a checkbook.
They
You write a check.
they're going to have to get rid of somebody. It's just not going to be anybody big.
They're going to write a check.
That's fine. It's not that hard to write a check. But you
There's
can't
a
be
guy.
over the
There's
cap.
a guy that used to own the New York Yankees.
Yes,
That's all he ever did.
that's fine.
Oh, I'm over the cap. Here's a check. Here's my penalty fee.
Well, maybe they don't then. But there's been talk really all offseason that maybe they would have to make a deal and get rid of a guy like Patrick Sharp. I don't think that's going to
Oh
happen.
my goodness, you can't do that.
Well,
Come on.
I hear what you're saying, but if a team could, it would be this team. Because if they got rid of Sharp, they'd have whoever they got back for him, plus Taves, plus Kane, plus Hossa, plus Richards now,
I'd get rid of Hossa.
plus Sod. Well, I know you would. I was trying to sneak that name past you. This team is loaded. Now they have Teuvo Teravainen coming in, too. He played a little bit at the end of last year.
But how do you justify getting rid of Sharp?
I don't.
I just would go back to what does Winnipeg have to do? Chicago has made their identity, and Sharp is part of that identity.
Oh, he led the team in points last year. Trust me, everybody wants to have the problems Chicago has.
So why would you do that?
I wouldn't.
You can't.
Well,
Write the check.
you could.
Write the check.
You don't want to talk about their defense? I know you always get really excited and happy when we talk
I
Blackhawks defense.
love their defense.
Really? This is the first I've heard of this.
I think Duncan Keith is one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
Admit it, you think he's the greatest athlete of all time.
No, I think he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
People seem to agree with you because he keeps winning Norris trophies.
Well, there you go.
Brent Seabrook,
Another
it's a nice pairing.
Now, here we go. I was a huge Seabrook fan, and I would say over the last couple of seasons, my value in him has diminished
Okay.
because I don't think he's performing at the level that he can perform at.
Well,
And that's purely from watching, not looking at stats, just not seeing the crispness, not seeing the intensity, not seeing the aggression that I normally saw in him playing the defensive role.
I will say one thing. Talking to Duncan Keith at the award show back in June when he won the Norris, he said right in there that having a guy like Brent Seabrook, A, they're great friends off the ice, which helps, but B, having a guy who can stay at home and allow you to kind of have some freedom as a defenseman to make offensive contributions, those two play off each other really well. And it's dangerous. And this goes back to what we were saying about Winnipeg and those teams in that first segment. Dallas, so their top defensive pairing, it doesn't compare even remotely.
So all the THP fans out there listening to this podcast are laughing and spitting out their drink as I just said what I said.
Shouldn't be drinking as you're
because Seabrook finished with 78 points last year.
Oh, he's fine. I'm not worried about him.
Like statistically, he's fine. I'm not seeing something when I watch him play.
Oh, well, you do watch him closer than most people.
So what I guess I'm saying is that I have the sneaky feeling he's just kind of fallen into the role of a team that is extremely talented.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a microcosm. How about that word?
It's better than hubris.
I should get something for that. I'm going to use it constantly now. Of the team in general, the bar has been set so high that anything less than going to the Stanley Cup is a disappointment. Anything less than a Norris Trophy finalist worthy season seems like a down year for a guy like Seabrook.
I think what I'm trying to say, too, though, is that when you have teams like Chicago, you have teams like Pittsburgh,
You have to bring them up.
Sorry. You have teams like Colorado currently, teams like LA. Lesser players tend to have better stats because of the players around them.
Yes. I would agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I watch Seabrook play, I'm seeing something as a player that doesn't necessarily mean at the end of the day he's not going to get the stats that he normally gets because of the cast around him.
And that said, if you were starting a hockey team, you'd have no problem with Brent Seabrook being on your top defensive pairing.
I would take him, yes.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Final segment, normally
that was
reserved.
loud.
Well,
Wow.
I have a point I want to make, and I want to make it
Apparently
loudly.
you do.
Normally, Doug, news and notes right here.
Oh, we're changing it up today.
Just for a couple,
Okay.
just a couple
All right.
weeks
All
here.
right. All right.
Got to cram. We got to give all these teams their due. If we're
I'm
gonna talk about
flexible. Very
Winnipeg
flexible.
for 7 minutes. We can talk about St. Louis for 7 minutes. Correct? But not right now because you want to talk
I am
about Minnesota
so flexible,
first.
I could tell you how many ways I'm flexible. But I won't.
Please don't.
Okay.
Absolutely save that
All
for
right.
your own personal
Okay.
podcast. Minnesota Wild, 22-1 Stanley Cup odds. I'm just going to give you the stat right now. 29-24.
That's pretty high for them.
High. See, I never understand odds. You mean high as in like those are good odds, or high as in like that's kind of high?
That's kind of high.
Okay. 29-24. Any idea what that number means?
No,
That's Ryan Suter's average ice time last year, tops in the NHL.
that's absolutely ridiculous.
That kind of concerns me for Minnesota.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
It's a bit high.
How old is Ryan Suter right now? I don't know his age off the top of my
I
head.
feel like he's aged quite a bit just because of that. Now you're going to put me on the spot. I don't know.
Come
Ryan
on, we
Suter's
got to look
exact
it up.
age.
I mean,
I'll have to
our
look it up.
fans deserve to know.
All right, well, you talk so it doesn't sound like I'm looking it up. Ryan Suter is 29 years old. I was going to guess that. I should have just guessed. They never would have known.
29 years old.
1 year for every minute of ice time.
That is absolutely ridiculous. I think I said that before. But anyways,
Seems
the
fairly
point I'm
repetitive.
trying to make is
That it's
you're going to
ridiculous?
kill him.
Well,
You're going to kill him.
look at this team that I think I am a lot higher on than you are. I think that's a fair assessment. I think we're going to find that
I
out.
don't know about that.
Oh, okay, we'll find out predictions here pretty soon. They got a lot of talent. They already had Zach Parise.
Mm-hmm.
They add Thomas Vanek in the offseason, and probably the worst kept secret ever. I mean, we knew they were going to add him 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Pominville they've added recently. They've had Mikko Koivu. He's been a holdover forever there. Got some young talent like
What
Charlie
about the $1
Coyle,
million man?
Mikhail Granlund. Who's the $1 million man?
Heatley.
Okay, well, they don't have him anymore. He's in Anaheim. It always comes back to Anaheim with you. They're loaded on offense. Goaltending, maybe a little suspect.
I
But
don't think so.
if one guy were to get hurt, and that one guy was Ryan Suter, that's it for them. Correct?
Well, you still have Parise.
Yeah, but Suter's their only, and he's an extremely, maybe the best defenseman in the NHL. But
No, Duncan Keith is.
I'm sorry. You established that earlier.
Yes.
If you lose, we really should have made all division teams. Can we just start over? We should start over. Because look at the defense in this division. Ryan Suter and Duncan Keith, that's a nice defensive pairing.
Correct.
But I just think for Minnesota, and we'll get into the predictions here soon, I have high expectations for them. But if they lose Ryan Suter, my expectations change quite a bit.
But here's the thing with Ryan Suter. He might be playing 29 minutes, but he only had 8 goals.
Yeah, very true. But he doesn't have to score for that team to have success. He just has to be out there for them to have success. Agreed?
Wow, that's a bold statement.
He's got to be out there and he's got to be playing defense the way
I will give
we've
you the
become
stat
accustomed to.
of all stats that when it comes to Ryan Suter.
You're not usually a stat
Because
guy.
it's a stat I typically don't like, but I will use it in this instance. He plays 20. He averaged 29 minutes.
29-24 average.
That's average.
There was a game where he almost played an hour.
Dude, he was a plus 15.
Plus,
To be a plus 15 playing those kind of minutes, yes, I have to agree with you. He is a key to that team.
I'm saying he's more than a key. I'm saying he's their most important player.
He's a key to that team.
Fair enough. I will build on your point to this extent, too, because I know that we're going to get advanced stat freaks out there that are mad that we even said the words plus and minus next to each other in a sentence. Plus 15, that's nice, that's good. Plus 15 over 29 minutes.
That's huge.
Plus 15 over 29 minutes against the other team's best players, even bigger.
82 times.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the playoffs, even longer.
so, but I still think you got Zach.
They're loaded. They are absolutely loaded.
They got Matt Molson. No, he left too.
He left. That was the only. Well, they lost Molson. They lost Heatley, like you said. They lost Clayton
I'm sorry.
Stoner.
My brain froze.
Add Thomas Vanek.
Yeah.
I like Matt Molson, but I'll take Thomas Vanek.
So, goaltending. You mentioned goaltending.
Weird. Well, they've just been very unfortunate.
Yeah, Backstrom. He's got to be healthy.
Yeah, well, he wasn't last year. And that's the thing. Minnesota, part of it's their style of play under Mike Yeo. But their goaltending that they have...
They had 3 starters last year.
But they had more than that. I mean, Brizgalov was playing in the playoffs for them, remember?
That's true.
But all their goalies played well. It's just a matter of keeping them in there and healthy. Again, if I'm Winnipeg, I would take any one player off Minnesota of all these names we've just rattled off and be ecstatic about it. But when you're Minnesota, I think at this point it's fair to say that their goal is the Stanley Cup, correct?
They would have to be, especially when you're spending the type of money you did spend on Parise and Suter. Okay?
And Vanek.
I mean, that is clearly when those 2 guys were signed, that was the goal. Because you don't spend that kind of money without that goal in mind.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you look at the list of players on the roster, you got guys like Backstrom, who I think if he's healthy is good. You got guys like, obviously, Parise, Suter,
Koivu, Vanek, Pominville.
Pominville.
Granlund was excellent last year. He was a revelation.
Why does this get me? People are going to hate me. But even a guy like Matt Cook.
People are going to hate you.
But Matt Cook brings something that most players can't bring.
Yeah, because you just named a lot of finesse guys. And you do kind of have to have a guy, even if it's not Matt Cook, somebody like that.
He had 28 points.
Yeah, he can produce offense too.
So, but he brings a physical presence that you need. You know what he reminds me of is and Matt's kind of changed. I mean, we both know that Matt's changed his game. His game is kind of done a 180, and I don't want to use the word kind of. His game has done a 180.
He had to. Otherwise, he was going to be out of the league.
He was going to be out of the league. A Rafi Torres. That's who I kind of... You need that guy with that grit, but he can still score when you need points.
Yeah, and he's a perfect complement to a team like this. Again, if he's just on a team on the way... If he's on Buffalo,
right?
He's not nearly as valuable as he is to a team like Minnesota. I've been kind of hesitant to get on the Minnesota Wild bandwagon in recent years. And part of it was just because they were kind of throwing money around, and I wanted to see how it played out. But I think this team's dangerous this year. They took out Colorado last year. They nearly took out Chicago. They had a lot of injuries, especially in goal, and they still nearly did it. And then to just add Thomas Vanek, they're dangerous.
They're an extremely dangerous team. And another dangerous team in this division is St. Louis.
Yeah, you like the Blues.
They finished with 52 points last year as well.
52 wins.
52 wins.
52 points.
My mistake. I'm sorry. 52 wins. They had the best goals against. They had 248 for and 191 against.
It's unreal.
That's huge.
Number 2 penalty kill in the National Hockey League. That was my stat, 85.7%. That will lead to you not giving up goals.
So why do they struggle?
Well, they don't.
They do.
They struggle in the playoffs.
Last 3 seasons. Oh, St. Louis is on their way. St. Louis is on their way. St. Louis didn't go anywhere.
It's not just the last 3 seasons. They have one playoff series win since 2003-2004. They've won one playoff series in the last, we're going into year 11.
That's amazing.
It's unreal. Some of those years were down years, but not the last couple years. You look at this lineup and you see a team that should contend. To be fair, we've said that about a few teams. And we're only just in one division in the Western Conference. It's not like the Pacific Division's any easier. So the competition is just ridiculously high to just win a playoff series in the West. And I don't want to fall into that trap of ripping the East, but...
Go ahead.
There's a couple really good teams in the East. But if you're good...
Oh, boy. 2 out of how many?
I'd say there's like 3 or 4. But either way, if you win, you're going to get deep in the playoffs. In the West, you could be great and be out in the first round. You really could be.
Yeah, there's only a couple of teams in the West that aren't going to even sniff the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, look at this division. We'll get to the predictions. I keep saying this in a second, but the way it's set up now, and it started last year, these teams are going to play each other in the first round. So realistically, St. Louis, Minnesota could be a first-round matchup, or Colorado.
What a series.
Or Chicago. Like, good teams will not make it out of the first. Good teams won't even make the playoffs in the West.
Right.
So what do you like about St. Louis so much, other than the goals against? This is not inspiring me.
It's the goals against.
No. Okay, that's
I
fair.
love the style of play. I love they got goaltending. They got some solid D. They do have some really, really good players on this team. There's this guy named Oshie.
Yeah, he's decent at hockey.
They have a guy, you're going to laugh, but a guy like Steve Ott.
Steve Ott's so annoying. Such an instigator, but good at his job. Oh, let me just say this, though. Only you would say Steve Ott before listing Alex Steen, 33 goals last year. David
I'm very
Backes.
upset with the Steen thing.
Why are you upset with the Steen thing, as we're calling it now?
Because he used to belong in the East to a team that I really like.
That's Toronto's fault. That's not St. Louis' fault. David Backes, 57 points, captain. One of the main captains, or I guess alternates,
listen.
Team USA.
You've known me long enough that when I watch a hockey game, I'm not looking at what the majority of people watch.
You're watching former Maple Leafs excel elsewhere.
I'm watching nuances. I'm watching the way guys play.
Intangibles.
That's a good word. I don't think I'm that good of an observer, or I'd probably be a scout.
Okay.
But yes, I do. I don't look at – I've known so many people that are stat-driven. So if a guy has 4 points in a game, he's fantastic. But there's other guys on the ice that have done so much and might even finish with a -2 at the end of the night and had a better game than the guy that had the 4 points. And it only had 8 minutes where the other guy had 12 minutes.
Have you seen the new camera technology where it's like a heat radar of where the player has skated on the ice and when he had the puck and how much he controlled it? And
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
okay, that's fine. That's I feel like Albert Einstein now, being shot down in my own time. Except I didn't invent this technology. It's out there.
But here's the thing. You can bring all the technology you want, and you can bring all these whiz kids in with their analytics and breaking down the game by numbers. But at the end of the day, it's a dude in a pair of skates with a stick in his hand and the heart under his jersey that matters.
That was beautiful. I feel like I'm in like the closing credits of Slapshot or something before the game starts.
But it's so true.
It is true. But
It's flesh and blood that wins the games, not some spreadsheet that says, well, when he has the puck, he scores at this percentage rate.
okay, which what name did I say that triggered this?
You didn't like my Steve Ott pick.
Oh, okay.
There's intangibles.
There are intangibles. I'm not anti-Steve Ott. Actually, I kind of am, but I respect what he does. He wants me to be anti-Steve Ott. Unless you're a fan of his team, he wants you to be anti-Ott. But I'm telling you, there's other players. Alex Steen, David
The
Backes.
team's loaded.
Alex Pietrangelo, Kevin Shattenkirk. No Vladimir Tarasenko now, but they do add Paul Stastny.
See the guy that goes, Scotty, I need more.
Yes, if that helps you. They do have Tarasenko. I'm sorry. They lose Sobotka. They lose Ryan Miller. And that one has me scratching my head here for a second. Because, again, we're talking about a team that's trying to win the Stanley Cup. Now their only goaltenders are Brian Elliott, who has never really done it for a full season on his own, and Jake Allen, who I actually really like, but he's fairly unproven.
I still think you have Brian Elliott.
Is that enough?
Well, you just said he's got Jack Allen.
But is that enough to win in the playoffs? Because let me take you back to St. Louis.
Yes, because, you didn't even mention a guy by the name of Jaden Schwartz.
I thought it. I just didn't mention it.
A winger with 56 points.
Okay, but as a wise man once told me, you can only take so much from stats. This
Correct.
team looks great on paper. They look good in the regular season. Last year, let me jog your memory. Coming down
Well,
the
that's
stretch,
the stat we started the whole conversation with, is that they've only won one playoff since 2004.
Yes. Last year, coming down the stretch, they had a chance to win the President's Trophy, which, big deal, except if you win the President's Trophy, you're not playing Chicago in the first round. They finished the year 0-6, get Chicago in the first round, lose. It's stuff like that. You have to, if you're a team like St. Louis, you've got to, every little detail matters. If they just go 2-4 down the stretch, they're probably not playing Chicago, and they're probably moving on. You can't let that happen.
No, and they're always at the top. I mean, to win 52 games in the NHL.
Well, it's great. This is one of the best teams.
And then fizzle out. It's not good.
Well, a lot of people, the criticism was that they needed more timely offense in the playoffs. They do add Paul Stastny from a division rival who has 18 career points.
What does
22.
timely offense mean?
Offense in a timely manner. I don't know.
Don't you just need more offense to win?
You need offense in key
situations. Does it have to be timely?
It'd be nice if it came in overtime. It doesn't seem to ever come in overtime for St.
It'd be nice if it came in the first, second, and third period. I mean, does it have to be timely?
Preferably in those periods, yes.
I've never understood that expression.
They need more offense in the playoffs. How's that? And Paul Stastny, they hope, can provide it. 18 points in 22 career playoff games for Paul Stastny. That's all my thoughts on St. Louis. Do you have anything else? Or can we do predictions?
Let's do predictions.
All right. We're going to work from the bottom
They have
up.
new unis.
Are they still blue?
And gold. Yeah.
All right. Well, there we
but
go.
They changed them.
Everybody does. I feel like teams change their uniforms like every other year now.
Got to make money somehow.
Well, it's not as bad as the NBA where they change them in the middle of the game. Let's start in 7th place because I think that's the only area we're going to agree here.
Oh, we're starting from the bottom, working our way up?
This could be crazy. I honestly think spots 1 through 6, you and I, could be completely flipped upside down.
Okay, so let's start from the bottom and work our way up.
Are we going to say it at the same time? 1, 2, 3.
No,
Winnipeg.
That's silly. Winnipeg, yeah.
Sorry, Winnipeg.
Because everybody knows it. Even Winnipeg knows it.
We're just saying what everybody's thinking. We're not trying to be rude. Well, Doug might be. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
All right, I want to make sure I have these right because I know you're going to reference them basically for the next 75 years.
I am writing them down.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, number 6. It feels weird to put a team in 6th place in this division, but I'm going to do this. Who you got in 6th?
Oh, I have to go first.
Yeah.
Nashville.
Okay, I have Dallas.
Ooh.
And I really like Dallas. I could see Dallas winning 2 playoff series, and I have them in 6th.
Wow.
I don't know what to do anymore. I already feel like I've screwed up my predictions.
5th.
Nashville.
Dallas.
Okay.
So
those two are flip-flop.
The flip-flop.
And can I just say...
So now we're coming down to the last 4.
Those two teams are probably going to be separated by a point at the end of the season.
Right.
I'm not trying to rip Dallas.
Nobody's ripping anybody. I just think the division is that strong that this is the way it's going to fold.
Nobody's ripping anybody. I thought you were kind of rude to Winnipeg, though. All right. 4th place.
Minnesota.
Colorado.
Ouch. Ouch.
And I don't even think they regressed that much. I
don't think they're going to drop that far.
I think, well, again, drop that far could be dropped 6 points in the standings.
Wow. 3rd.
Minnesota.
I had St. Louis.
Okay.
I had St. Louis in 3rd.
Fair enough. I feel like these. I'm going to look.
So here we are. Here we are. Our 1 and 2 are the same. We have the same 2 teams.
No.
In 1 and 2.
No, we don't. Because I have St. Louis 2nd.
Oh, I was right.
No, you were wrong. Who do you have?
Oh, that's
second?
right. You got Colorado in 4th. My silliness.
Who you have? Colorado in 2nd.
Yes.
And then we both have Chicago in 1st.
And we both have Chicago in 1st.
For a quick reference point, last year's standings were Colorado, St. Louis, Chicago, Minnesota, Dallas, Nashville, Winnipeg. So you basically have them, well, pretty much the same, except you have Chicago in 1st. That's the only difference. And then you kind of pushed Colorado and St. Louis down. I don't think you keep.
What are you trying to say?
Down. I'm just saying. I'm saying whatever you want me to say.
I think we said it best in the 2nd segment. Chicago is loaded.
The one thing with the Blackhawks, I always think of a team like the San Antonio Spurs in basketball where they know it's a marathon. I don't think the Blackhawks are completely broken up emotionally if they finish 2nd in this division. They're just building for the playoffs. If let's just say Patrick Kane is hurting down the stretch, he may not play a whole lot the last couple weeks. They're willing to sacrifice positioning as long as they're in the playoffs for success in the playoffs. So maybe they don't win the division, but I think that's the team you have to pick.
And they don't have the moniker of champs to carry all season long.
And they
can just go and play hockey and not have to do the extra 6 interviews wherever they go.
And
whereas LA has got that burden now.
Now they not only don't have the target on their back, but they've got that extra motivation.
Right.
And you know me, I'm not a huge Blackhawks fan in general, but I do like the way they play hockey. And I like Jonathan Toews because that guy's motivation is never lacking, and now it's going to be that much higher.
Right.
That's scary.
It's very scary, especially if you're one of the other teams.
That's it for episode 47. Join us next time as we break down the Bruins' chances of repeating as Atlantic Division champions.
This is true, but will Tampa, Montreal, Detroit, or yes, Toronto give the Bruins a run for their money?
Or no, not Toronto. Plus, whatever other news breaks around the world of hockey. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.